Sangye chetan soki chonan la chanchu pardo ani kya age jinso yepe chonan ki rola panjira sangye ndo parasho Sangye chetan soki chonan chanchu pardo ani kya sunje age jinso yepe chonan ki rola panjira sangye ndo parasho Sangye chetan soki chonanda, chancho pardo dani kya Kage shinso yepe chonamki, rola penjere sangye ndu parasho. Simchen tamche dewa, pewe kyutan dembara kyuchi, simchen tuldo dunga ye kyutan trawara kyuchi, simchen dunga mebe dewa tan mindrawara Simchen tamche nyirin chadhan nyitan trawe tan nyamla nepara kyuruchi Simchen tam dewa tan dewe kyutan dambara kyuchi Simchen tam dungal dan dungal je kyutan trawara Simchen tamche dungal mebe dewa tan mindawara Simchen tamche nyirin chadhan nyitan trawe tan nyamla nepara kyuruchi Simchen tamche dewa Dewe kyutan dembara kyuchi, simchen tam dungal dan dungal je kyutan trawara. Simchen tam je dungal mebe dewa tan mindawara. Simchen tam je nyirin chatan nyitan tra tan nyumla nebara kyuruchi. Simchen tam je dewa dewe kyutan dembara kyuchi, simchen tam je dungal je kyutan trawara. Simchen tamche dunga mebe dewa tam mindawa. Simchen tamche nyirin chadan nidan ta nyamla neba kyuji. Sashibyo ji chuji me do ro li ji Sangye jindu medembu Dögünanda Jinlai Chöbaşu Idang Guru Renamendala Kanyatayami.
Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. This ground spread with incense, adorned with flowers, Mount Meru, the 4 continents, and the sun and the moon. I imagined as a Buddha land, and by offering it to you, may all living beings enjoy this pure land. Thus, meeting the teaching of the peerless teacher is due to the spiritual mentor's kindness. I dedicate this virtue for all living beings to be cared for by excellent spiritual friends. Yadam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryata Yami.
Kunung de Chanjuki Semki Zinga, Ju ene Muji Chetan Ju, Moache, the Pemisic Ketchmuchagores.
So now getting back into our topic here of the verses of the Way of the Bodhisattva, this really extremely meaningful text. We remember here at the beginning that at the outset of any activity, whatever it is that we do, that we examine our motivation for doing it. And in this case, the motivation should be a motivation of love and compassion, concern for all beings, a motivation of bodhicitta. So at the outset, we arouse bodhicitta, and in the end of completing whatever it is that we're doing, it's also very important that we take the time to take whatever roots of virtue we have gathered and dedicate them for the purpose of all beings.
Totani la Javani Toma and Ebe Jajuki Semizingua Tara and Moa and Ebe Jenny and Ebe Carsore Gazam controllers of Batanic Kina Gaza control John me to a Jenny Tempozo Moa Cheduala Pet Tempozo Shakore. What are the Pemis will catch Muchadiores?
And so and this doesn't mean just at the time of Dharma teachings to establish this, but actually it is whatever we're doing and related to that activity, we should always embrace bodhicitta. We should be coming from the good heart and the caring heart. That's our motivation for entering into and doing that activity. And that is at the outset. Then during the actual activity itself, the endeavor itself, then we should perfectly do it to the very best of our ability, really perfectly accomplish what we are setting out to do. And then at the end, take the roots of our virtue and then dedicate them for this high purpose, the purpose of all sentient beings. And this is very, very important. So as it said, there are 2 times at the beginning of an activity and at the end of an activity that we must really be extremely purposeful with our endeavor. And that means in the beginning, bodhicitta, and in the end, dedicate those roots of virtue. So once we have accomplished something, finished something, to dedicate those roots of virtue. Because when we take whatever goodness was accumulated in the course of that action, when we take it and we then purposefully dedicate it, it is then protected. It is steadfastly protected so that in a moment of anger, or if we transgress like we get very emotional, even a very angry state cannot destroy these roots of virtue. So these steps are very, very important.
Yeah, that indeed, Galata. Fajing Nyamje, Ranchin Gunda, Jen Jinsing Yenden Tone. Tape Telepe Yenden Tone, Digital, Tanyam Jet, the country or Sidugala, and it temba the shepherd ninja, any shepherdala, Toala Tata Gonsul, Membala Nigel Gonsul, Nyambalan Tensen Gonsul, Membala Nigel Gonsul, 곰벤 디부데 이전에 그상 토알라 차도 곰술도 침발해. 들어와.
아니 뭐마디 토와.
그상 토알라 차도 곰술지. 다 팔타나 차도 곰거서 공연소리지도 와. 보다 때니고지요 말해서와. 차도가 민기 따버마도 민기 따네 차도가 템바르마도 차도 원이 차도데 차도 시대 젠라이는 연된데나 미즈베키 거와. 차도 신데 젠라 유모 부주나 마즈베키 거래 젠라 연된데나 마즈베키레 랑리 젠 토제나 수시선에 마키베 용거와. 디치즈를 라고 말해서와. 다디 카레랍고르 데가 아니 다 쟁기 랑라 연된 요 말제당 아니 랑라 아니 베 통주인데 계속되나 수수샘 추마주지네 사무다네 오 미리 연된 요 말을 연된라 계속이 연된다 잠베 연된 니데 잠베 연 계속이 연된 라진기 연된 저와 연된들라 미 연된 요 말잖아 거의 시라게 버려 요 말했어 단도비 연데 메나야 계속이 연된지 요레스 리로 소바테게 계속이 연들와 아마니 계정이니테 리로 소바테게 요요 말와 연데는
simple 하고 마송텔라 마
연된들라 장베 연데 장톱기 중에 연된지다 아니 계속이 시랍 계속이 연된지 요레스
오케이 장 오케이 데콜라 아니 장톱
장베 토블기 장 연된지 요레
페나
장 아주 장내 시야기 연된지로와
올라서
네가 골터서 저거네 지중 연구로와
오케이 야
아 계속기 연된데 강발은 단다래
드네 케톱기 연텐 컨트레
리라소바 아니 베 셔럽로소바 되게데 리라소바 상기 리데 계속기 연된로와 강발은 단다 군념래 텔리 연된 자체지요 말이 연되는 거 말이 리드로와 상기에 리드로와 어다 되니 네가 대소 요래서 삼단에 수수로 뽑아주네 셈투 뭐주지네 미요 말라나 렌자 셈 줌주기요 말이 어다 되게 삼단에 돼 펜도 전부도 와 제가 차도 곰서데 차도 미저버져거서 텔럽고 말다 미저버데 찌 깨주기와 말을 걸 셈라.
And so at this point in the text, we have been examining exchanging self for others or cherishing others more than oneself. And what we've really been pointed at looking at is the faults and having really a strong self-cherishing attitude and the good qualities that come from cherishing others. And so we've looked at both of those things, and then next we have how to put those things into practice. How to make those things stable and how to put them into practice. And last we were looking at the habitual reaction we have to those that we may see as superior to ourselves. Then we have jealousy. To those that we feel are inferior to ourselves, we have a sense of pride and superiority. And to those we consider and find equal to ourselves, we're driven to competition. And so, and pride. And so to these, we have been examining that, you know, for example, for those that we feel are superior, maybe they have, you know, more means than we do, to look at that jealousy, to actually meditate on jealousy. And when we say meditate on jealousy here, we're not saying to actually arouse a feeling of jealousy, but to identify that feeling within ourselves, label it. I'm jealous. Let me look at that jealousy. Here, you know, and rather than being jealous when someone has maybe superior qualities to us or more financial means or a higher status, that we're not just saying to have patience with that, to forbear it. That's not what we want to happen here, but so first of all, we do want to say, don't be jealous, recognize it, and don't get jealous. Don't have feelings of jealousy towards that. But what do we do other than that? It's not just about forbearance. It's really about not getting upset, identifying what happens in our own mental state when we're with someone who may be superior to us. Examine it, label it, and make sure that you're working with your mind state and your emotions, that you're not getting upset. And then in terms, you know, of qualities, if, you know, one has qualities also, you know, maybe there's someone who we feel is inferior without qualities. But actually, there are two categories of being like endowed with qualities. There are the qualities that we gain from our own trainings, from our own learning, from our own education, and for what we put into it. And maybe someone hasn't achieved those, but that's not to say they are without qualities, because then there is the second category of innate qualities. We have the innate qualities of being of the same equal family of the Buddha. We can all get to the point of the realization and the state of Buddhahood, be an enlightened being. We are all on equal ground when it comes to that. And so they have it too. We should see it in others. We should never see that someone is completely without qualities, or that oneself is without qualities. So we should never be discouraged when thinking that there are no qualities at all. And we should work to guard against our jealousy when we do perceive qualities in others, and make sure that we are not getting creating an upset mental state for ourselves.
자상한 진진슈 춤보 여긴 여기 갑라 서라다나 시부지 야페 오 미미가 지 시부지 서라다데가라 수수 센다나 가로 인삼삼지 끼거라 메라탄데가라 렘상셈 중거라 마기베 용거라 자상한 진진기 견동 진진기 연단던다 서라다나 시라셈라가나 말레비치 메라타와이나 셈라지 줌발레 마주지 대이 뭐딱 코로나 때니지마다 강행지기 찌라그르 미가 괜지 찌라그르 따뜻이 인기레 산데 랑게 셈 투머
가래 인기레 건다코
가겐지기 소소라 가보 영엔지기 딱 돌아당그레 미가 괜지 메라당그레 딱때 코로이 추니레 코로니 수레 따때 시다 사요 말했으니 셈 투머주데 때니 섬도 당해데 다 오늘 진진진 연된도나 띄운 거라. 다 겨울무질러서 봤대왜 가서지 미 가rel라브나 직 시작에 디 개발 전부도 용음도 와. 가봐 이나 그잡전도 탈모자라 에네베 강가라에네베 지모제 데난기도 와. 와다 때 빼때나 진짜는 아주 진진진 연된 동네가라 돌아다나 부담아서 진진 차 맞주지. Ini mera tangdi gala sem jumma juji. Tini degwa de pe misiu ke chimbore. Tida pape ta pen yu penjur ming namram karina. Wata shivugi sem la godu shu chumbu lep jugyo mare lep gor tan tonda tere.
And so when there's a person who has strong egocentric self-clinging, very in self-cherishing, they're just all about themselves and really very, very strong, holding very strong to this. This is their attitude. when someone praises them, they get all pumped up about it. They feel so good that, someone is singing their praises. They really like it. And then when someone speaks, has disparaging comments about them, immediately they just are so upset about that. How could they say that about me? And, but when someone, so this is for someone who really has such a strong egocentric, such a self-cherishing, I am so dear attitude, then they'll feel like this. However, when someone takes others as more important, they really are other cherishing. They really have placed the importance on others rather than themselves. They will realize, well, so it goes, this is samsara. Some people are gonna, generally speaking in samsara, when a samsaric person, when they like someone, they're gonna sing their praises. And when they don't like them, they're gonna put them down. It's just, the reality of it here. It's the nature of things here in samsara. And because they just realize that's just the nature of things, they don't get all worked up, whether someone is saying nice things about them or whether someone is speaking unkindly. That's all the same. It's the nature of samsara. And when someone really has already turned their attention to placing importance on the greater, or like on the collective rather than themselves, this kind of thinking is the way they will take it. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we can see, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, no matter who he meets, everyone he meets with the same respect of placing his hands together and bowing to them, whoever they are, because His Holiness the Dalai Lama shows reverence and respect towards all. And we should be like that as well. We should definitely place our importance on seeing the qualities in others, in really working for the greater good. That is where we should put our emphasis. And no matter what, no matter whether we're being praised, and whether we have great position and great means, or whether someone is putting us down, we won't have these high swings of loving, these when praise and feeling dejected when someone puts us down. We won't feel passionate about it one way or the other.
차도랑 희주즈들고 말했어와 차도 계기 겐데 수수글라 렘바이나양 디셈드 투 모주지 차도 끼루 모주지니 에베 컨트롤 해야 돼 순고아레스
나도 디 켄 계기 켄
다 차도 계기 켄 차도한지 상나양 랑게 삼루단에 삼루 주와단에 차도 끼머주야 차도 까야 돼 인주 뭐마데
가야 가야 라소
들어와 미 미지게 윤대요 말에서 배 메라탄이나 셈라 디마지다 다 강한지기 메라탄 거 미가 큰지 메라탄 거래 강한지 그 메라탄 거 말에 또라탄 거래 대시를 사요 말세가 수스셈라 que le mason que per chamason oda dusne kanje thado kimmi juya thado kaya de ngomade thado la soba tabe garine te kaya ka thubina samudani par jinjing yunden thon galata jen la pe shibuji kozo kuba je jen la pen pembatana di sonam sayo ba thong gala jen luetang thu marwa 차도 젠라더니 기그와 젠게 뭐 윤델 미즈바케 그래 젠게 베 윤놀 미즈바케 그래 젠라니 베 지 가르즈나 유 잘라던데 타페 자신나 살다 젠라 이 동아지나 텔 미즈바케 그와 이 미즈바 까용드가라 차도 엄바즈 데테레다 데 미즈바케 침부도와 Tita also me use a message to be your marta.
La.
The me use a message de la lentar to be your mare. Jingy in den tonamado.
And so we learn here at this point in the trainings to work with jealousy that arises. Jealousy arises when we are in the company of others, for example, that we feel are superior to us in some ways. They have more qualities, they have more accomplishments, and somehow we are measuring them to be higher than us in some ways. And even if that is the case, what we need to guard against, so this kind of thinking is the cause for the arising of jealousy. And even if the cause for the arising of jealousy is there, and even if their qualities are there, what we must do now on our side, it is on us now to let this not take up residence and just run free within our mind and our emotional states. But we must block it. We must have a transformation in the way that we are thinking so that jealousy is not born. The feeling of jealousy does not arise. And so that's very important. And so we work with this respect for all sentient beings and seeing all sentient beings as equally respectful. And when an opportunity in doing so, in leveling out the playing field and of seeing others as more important than ourselves, we level out the playing field in a way where we are able to block the arising of jealousy when we're in the presence of someone we may feel inferior to. Because when you are thinking in the means or along the lines of seeing that others are more important, as others are put first, as their purpose is first, then, other than feeling, very respectful, these other feelings for them of jealousy won't arise. So we'll feel respectful for them, and this will be an accumulation of merit. And when we have had a transformation in our thinking, not only are we now interacting with life situations in a way that is very merit fulfilling, very meritorious, we're also now establishing a mindset where we will never forsake sentient beings. We will never give up on sentient beings because there's no more jealousy. We're seeing their qualities, regardless of if they have qualities and money. We won't see these as the cause. They won't be a cause for challenge. It won't be the cause of arising of jealous feelings. And so we have developed a kind of patience with this, which is really more about a transformation in our thinking, which ceases negative emotions from arising. And so this is really, something that is, really, again, quite transformational, quite important. We're now kind of, as it says in the verses, we're forbearing jealousy, and we're training or practicing, meditating with jealousy. But these are transformational practices, but we can't get to that point. Actually, this won't work unless we have first learned to see the qualities in others and put others first. So seeing the qualities in others is the very first thing that we must do.
야 준준 대화 전단하는 대응 것도 당부 예 쟁여사랑데 랑에서 젠데네 타도도 차상 깨루 주네 니베 따티 타도도 생긴데 야부 말에 따티베 마 장주섬 냠는 저게 태바 준비 진주 저게 됐잖아 니가 말에 쓰디가라 랑 진진을 빼 양준지 따야지 순고하래 대편도 열에서 순도와 타도 살딱 깨루주 이 랑진진기 이 타도들 랑진진기 누구인바 이 못쳐야 된다라 어따티 그 강은 답대요나 따티 지기래 로 강렘바이나 간지 타도 생인디 개개개담바 고미야 말해 고미야란다 타도 그 민기 따가르마 또 타도랑 말해 타도 깨미 줘야 돼 탑시들이
So here in the stages of the trainings, we are working with the ways to practice with this. And here it's the way to practice with jealousy. And so in this form of working with the emotion of jealousy, we first actually purposefully arouse jealousy and meditate, like visualize, really zoom in and clearly see a feeling of jealousy. So we purposely recall it. We establish it in a way so that we can vividly see what it is. And this is something, and then, so once we clearly see it, we recall a scenario or create a scenario for ourselves where we really are feeling, instigating a feeling of jealousy, and then immediately saying, this is inappropriate. Here's what is inappropriate. I am training in bodhicitta. I am a bodhisattva, learning to train for the benefit and work that every action is for the benefit of all sentient beings. This feeling is inappropriate and it's something that I must eliminate. This is something I must avoid. I am a practitioner of the great vehicle. And this is something that I should not. This is an emotion that is inappropriate. And so in that way, we also then identify this comes from self-cherishing, and my self-cherishing is what I'm looking to eliminate. So we actually look to bring up feelings of jealousy so that we can identify them and see them, feel them, look them in the face and say, not appropriate. This is what I need to eliminate. And here when we talk about practicing jealousy or meditating on jealousy, visualizing jealousy, 100%, it's not about being jealous. It's not about the afflictive emotion that we want to create an afflictive mental state. It's not the case. We want to arouse it so that we can investigate it and then put an end to it.
다 니빠질더러 곰베뚜비 출들라 돈다 됐더리 딱 말아서 탑실 가야지대 뉴몰라서 봐 타돌라서 봐 대끼미주야 탑실은 베네야 땅가서 토마 매반에 빠장은 바지거라 와 빠장은 바요래 뉴몰 곰바슈 춤보래 다 탑실 지기 고 뉴몬데 그 깨제니 베 디체나 아니 딜 샤바체 거래 샤돔지 같은 샤돔지네 따바체 거래 세대 준 거다.
And then in the second section here of just how it is that we work to eliminate the afflictive emotions, the ways to remedy them and the means of going about remedying these different negative emotional states. We first must understand that from beginningless time, we have had these mental imprinting, this karmic imprinting of strong negativity. We have been imprinting with this since time without beginning. And we have become very habituated to and very used to this way of being. It's almost, you could say, our default mode. And this is because the karmic imprinting and this negativity is very, very strong. And we've become so habituated. And so now that we know that, what do we need to do when we recognize this? When we recognize it, then we need to admit it, confess it, and then again take up, our appropriate pledges of confession, so that we can purify. We can continue to work on purifying these negative karmic imprints.
수승 운동하선에 끼리 야보요 말이지. 간지 샤바제 따바제 수정제 두스제나 아니 야보요 직 답 제거를 되고 단로 사동제나 따야다 리비 다 윤대연에면 뒤로와 딕바싱인데라 야저금주 그러고데 낙포래라가 그러지 카르포치 여르데 샤바제는 따예요 받으래서 이 샤바제가 가서 두야 여러와 어떻게 갑두갑두라 사돔 제거하다 빼미스게 전부 nem부진 순고하래.
And if we don't work against these negative mental states, these things that are so entrenched in our psyche, then there's really nowhere for them to go but up. They will just get stronger. And they will also increase. So they will, increase more and more, and so more frequently, and they will also get stronger and stronger, and they will be the cause for the hell realms in the future. And so therefore, we absolutely must purify them through confession, and then again take up the resolve and the pledges to not repeat them. So those antidotal things that work to purify our negativity. So we must work against the momentum of their increasing. And so actually, when it comes to purification of negative emotions, well, we think about that as a quality of something that's at least a positive aspect of the negative aspect of negative emotions. And so as it said, when it comes to negativity, 99% of negativity is bad, is negative, but there's 1% of positive. And what is one positive thing about negativity is that it can be purified. And we're able to purify that negativity. So we should work to the very best of our ability to employ, the antidotes to negativities, like was earlier said, as confessing and retaking vows and resolving not to commit negativity in the future.
요거 과라네 군노야보 지코이 원다 냐갈라갈라 니마 강보 가레 젠도 셈레 슈다지 땅 에게와 지디나 아니 지수이라지 랑게게와 콤펠든 로얄 핑기리 아니 디바체나 텔라니 이야 차르카시인데 아니 게셈키 아니 두세네 로예 바빠 니에나 딱 오늘 펜다용 거래 밀람미투야 다테는 망보 팽기로 어다 뜻을 빼미스 개점 버리지 말아서 추정이 세진이 자와제하지 차거와 그게 철은 주야지 차거 때 빼미스 야버리지
Okay, then di gewe chola di serpochong pana ani gewa di gawagom dang jesu yirang dene ani dikpa Yana?
아니 디바잖아.
Chikpachana?
이견데
Yigede?
샘랑 교바지 이견데
Mhm.
아니 두스잖아 샤바차고 예 펠카다 가고로 이게 니 세진드나 펠카 가고라고
Mhm.
때마다 디바드린 지잖아 상인이 차로로
Mm.
이견데 때마다 다도 온다 이견데 지 디잖아 다 상이 펠야드 매 차로고
Oh, lasso. Yeah.
마르사지를 리고 다테리
Mm.
마르사지데 샤바진 다호로
Mhm.
펠야드 매 차로고
Mhm.
이야기 니세진드나 펠카 가게에서 송도
Mhm.
미스베 깨침버다
And so we should look that as we go through our days, that we are constantly aware of what is driving, what's behind our words and actions and thoughts, constantly aware of what we're holding inside as far as that goes. And so we guard our positive motives. And at the end of the day, then we look and we review over how did the day go? What were the virtuous and positive things that I was involved with? And look back, and when you can see the things that are positive that you accomplished during the day, then rejoice in those virtues, rejoice in those virtues, and look to increase them further and furthermore. By rejoicing in our virtues, actually this is the way that draws the energy so that they will further and further increase in the days to come. And in the course of going over the day, when you come across something that you feel that perhaps you were mistaken upon, or it was actually negative and not positive, then admit that. Recite the Vajrasattva, the 100-syllable Vajrasattva mantra, and then have some remorse for that you've done. Really feel bad about having done so, regret it. And these are the antidotal forces that will help to neutralize that negativity. For if we don't admit and apply some kind of an anecdotal force, such as those 100-syllable mantra or the feeling of regret, then what will happen with negativity, if we were to apply a scale of 1 to it today, a negativity scale of 1, tomorrow it will have increased to 2. The next day it will have increased to 4. It keeps doubling and doubling. The negativity increases. So we must find some antidote to that to neutralize that negativity. And so at the end of the day, we have 24 hours to work with. And what we want to do is get as many of those 24 hours focused in virtue. So we really want to increase the virtue by rejoicing in virtue and regretting negativity. And so when we confess, there's no way for the negativity to grow, further and further, or to multiply. And so that's why confession and antidotal things like remorse are very, very effective.
Oh yeah, that during Nyambalan dem sum gun susi adre, that during tin doere, Nyambalan dem sum gun susi. That yunde Nyambayina, Pando Nyambayina, Tela, Enichi Digilan Densum Jati, Mingitar Madan Densum One Marta Densum Mingitar, what a taste Sungore. Tatela subject Amazon Yisudwa, Ningulan Demba, Yunden Tapalan Demba. Lekpin Namdralan Demba, Nupa Jarwalan Demba, As. Ta Ningulan Demba de, Ta Shuluka Kare. 갸당 두치럽 띵바들도와 자당 냠라 되니니 강기 다니 하지칠 자기 녀상 꾸딘 저바인질 네버투스 다 이게 가르로는 다 수수 땅원에 란진진기 견통 진진기 연den통되긴 다 라진제 산이 같이로와 대통통되긴지기
the dark
다시야 되다 수수 텐데 진딩이 가사 되지 거래 다 란진진기 견통 진진진 연den통되긴 가사 되기 심지리 간르지나 냠타바 심진 간르지나 tel라 에니페 그 냠바실 따기로 마도페 렌셈지다 때는 지기어 말했을라 거래. 연된 속간듯이 통이나 아니 직다 다 수수기 뭐네 다 장주 세배 연된 나가서 통구 말와 마동대가 다 이주 통해요 말했을 나래라바 연된 열에 삼바지 두스제네 이배 수술은 그룹 거기 경바단 대주 깨마주야 탑신배야래 녀바단 구팅 아니 텐데 이직 미오에게 다 셈나라 미게와 깨미주에게 탑실 텐데 렌셈 미오에게 탑실라 배고레스 아니 이 네버도네 다 좀바체네 아니 배 두바치긴스 어떻게 쓴 거래.
So now we pick up in our text. We'll be on verse number 147 in chapter 8, where we are examining the feeling of competitiveness, of rivalry. When we have a peer or an equal, the tendency to be competitive, to be better, to win over, to rival the other. And so again, although this section that we're in is examining the way to meditate on and work with competitiveness, again, Geshe-la reminds us, this isn't about looking to increase our, the actual like emotion of competitiveness. It's about really looking at it in the face, seeing what it is, learning the destructiveness, and then learning to work to antidote that. And so here, in verse number 147, that I must excel, outstrip. So first I'll read this and give Geshe-la's explanation, and then maybe if there are others that have other translations they could also read. I'm reading from the Padmakara. So verse 147, that I might excel outstripping him regarded as my peer and equal. In contests, I will certainly secure my fame and fortune, public renown. And so here, what we need to understand is that it says that I might excel outstripping him. We need to identify this I here. When it says I in this context, in this verse and in these verses that we have been recently looking at, this I is the evolved mind, the mind with a new vision of having already seen the faults in self-cherishing and already seen the great qualities in putting others before oneself. This is the new evolved I. So in this new evolved I, looking to not like transgress and put others down, or in this case, become rivalry and competitiveness, this new I recognizes that whichever sentient being in whichever family of beings, whoever it is that I meet, I will not put them down. I will not be competitive. I will not have the competitive mind against them. Even if qualities are seen, competitiveness will not arise. And so this is something that is going to take an effort on our part. This is something that we will really need to, and we certainly must put effort into to combat against this feeling. And the reason we work with a training like this of looking at competitiveness and then making sure that we are looking out at every other kind of being and being absolutely convinced that we will not be competitive with them. This is so, and that we see, that we see qualities in these beings, whoever they are, is that so that competition won't arise. So right now we're establishing, looking at competitiveness to avoid it arising in the future. Is there another translation?
Yeah, I've got the Stephen Batchelor. In order that I may excel, he who is regarded as equal with me, I shall definitely strive to attain material gain and honor myself, even by such means as verbal dispute.
Okay. Anyone else? Is there another? Perhaps. Is there another? So
I'm looking here, Dean. I've got the Wallace.
Okay. I'm wondering, does this to anybody seem like the wording that I had? Does it seem unusual, or does it work with what Geshe-la just said in people's understanding?
To me, it looks like it looks like kind of the opposite. Like,
okay, I was thinking exactly the same. It looks opposite to me, and so I would like to ask Geshe-la for clarification, if people don't mind. I usually don't ask questions.
Do you want me to read this one?
Yes, please.
First,
mine looks opposite.
Seeing himself as being equal to others, in order to enhance his own superiority, he will obtain wealth and respect for himself, even by means of discord. Or discord, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe we'll just keep going and we can come back and ask a question on that. What, should we do that?
No,
or should we ask a question here? Okay, I will ask a question. Geshe-la.
Yeah.
Indicate di sikje di kensare di ngone kerangi sungpanang sendang dochok ani iyambadra. Kangin sana ani daktang nyampatun nani kang
다당 냠라 되나니 강기랑이 락지 칠식도아.
Nina serpa kyang ngay padru. Tana dak ani dak di dak sarpa di ngay padru. Ani dak seri di dak sarpa re di shen chenzen ki gang zakre dindre yana dene serpa yi kyang nge padrup kare chene nge padrup dak sarpadi
Oh, vacha yedela 다 ngaranzo ran jinjingi gyöntong jen jinjingi yuanden tongdegen 가사 다 이게 semjen 간데지나 리라 소파 냠바 장심 라 장주 세바 된데라 아니 녀바다 유엔된 속이 된데기 가르소리 유엔된 속에 semjenla 라퍼 다기 녀바다 쿠르티치그리스
Discerpudo, de kerangi sumpa nangshan, yana pena geshila dane sikang sumpa nangla daki nye dankor.
kurtini 녀바 시디갈라 타이 수수고라 민당 텐데 사야로와
Rere,
민당 텐데 아니 kurti 시디갈라 소소라 미 쳇티체네 구잡 구르구르 제야데슬라고로 kurti
discerpudo, yana yang ani jen chenjin cheken la karichini de kalchampore. Dak la ani nye dankor di kechampo yosamare. Karichini dila ani kechampo yingire.
tat susula kurti 제야데슬라고 말와 장주 세바 jen 진진 쟁엔데라 녀바다 kurti 텐데 제나 수술로 손음 사고로 젠라 니베 장주 세바라 가서 가서 잡다 주나 손음 수사고래 쟁엔데라 손음 사고와
Rere. Lasso dene che papo sure di nedan korti shuken sure di dak sarpa yamena disrupomando injigela yang surpomando
다티 제바보 수수 마 젠 장주 세발 제바이나 랑로 손음 사고와
Rere.
데레 인구
Uh-huh.
재산 장주 세발다 다 네팔 국어 말 구르티 국어 말에데 란치바이나 랑로 손음 사여로 케빈 첨부라고 거래 디에니 베 점바 인체 네버도 제거래 실라고 거래 수수거를 제니얼 워터구면 진짜 브랜딩이 이제 켈렌지 제사로와 제사네다 젠라니 베 디 제바이나 소남다랑라 사거와 제바브랑라 하고선
Yankirchik Soronan. Pena di kapsu dak seri di dak sapore di jen chenzen chekenre rebe
vacha
dak tang
vaata nyamla tuna nese do
Di kapsu
vaata nyamla tuna nese vaate susudan nyambe simjin thumme ba kangala koyare rila soba nyamde ngin chanjus te chadala koyare
laso di kapsu dak sure di dak sapore dak ani nyomong yerpe dakre
nyumonda yorwa ina di va side 가르소래 나도 젠진진기 연된 통되게 란진진기 견 통되게 디가사들이
oh lasso
데레 인구 다티
okay tene okay disable ani genla dendre yana dak seria di oh nga kalchampo yen nga rangchenjin yen di mare di mana karichene daki nye dan korti ni Sepa yikyang pena nga nge padru.
Oda ta susugi yen semjen la. Yen semjen chanchu seba semjen yen semjen la. Any nyepa da kurti da tezo any yen susu kelen jesara ngamani yenden jigin zerde. Yenden jigin laptarwa yen jinjin yenden tondugala yen la any be nyepa kurti tezo yongaya ti chiba ina susula sonam sagorwa.
So okay, this yenda yen injikela di mendo.
Minde.
Okay, mendo. So can I hear the two other? Okay, everyone, can I hear the two other translations?
Sure,
one
and
more
I think
time?
and I think Doug put at least one of them on the chat list.
Kanje ranchindi ma chayarwa. Tatati dagi yen any be chanju sebare yen semjenre telan nyepa kurti chibaina ralo sonam saig tontal chigiorwa.
Lasso, okay. So I've reread what I really does not make sense to me in this English because it's not sensical and it does not match what Geshe-la explained. As you mentioned, Janice, it seems to go directly against it. Geshe-la is saying him regarded as my peer and equal. So here, Geshe-la is saying him. So there's self and other, that I might excel. There is an I in that first sentence. In Tibetan, it's the first word dak. Geshe-la is saying this I is the new evolved I, the I who has recognized the fault in wanting every, they're all about their own agenda. This is someone who's finished with all of that, has understood the fault, and has turned over a new leaf. Doesn't look to, to fulfill that anymore. So this is the I that it says here, that I might excel. Him, as it says in mine, and him, I think it says in others. Geshe-la is saying this person who now, the mind that now understands their past erroneous ways, now for others, regardless of whether they appear equal or not, is always respectful, is always speaking of their qualities. We can't see when someone else has qualities or not, or all the qualities of a bodhisattva. No matter if it's an ordinary person, an equal person, a bodhisattva, we pay respect to all others. And in paying respect to all others, whether equal, inferior, superior, what we're doing is it's an accumulation of merit. And therefore, in the end, we will benefit because we are gaining an accumulation of merit by always respecting others. That's the explanation here.
Dina, Sundo, Kurtini, Chansim, Lachin, Ditang, Zumba Ingyang, Never to Bosidgala, Chanju Seba. La kurti da tenichaba ina sonam sagorwa. Oda tin najin jining any be tizula any kurti chigins. Kurti na so sonam sagris. Ingutere.
Dralwa nangla e.
Oh.
Yang kerchik dralwa ki tsikti.
Dewe channel dido. Kurti ni chansem lachin dance.
Oh.
Chansem lachin chanju seba.
Oh, lasso. Oh, yeah. Di kalchampore. Yeah.
Oh,
Tik de yuna kalchampo.
Oh, cheta. Dedan Zumba ingi neper to bo sidgala. That chansem legenda tendela chanju sebala kursi chebaina. Susula sonam chibura. They diga neper to two gains, the bed chickens, it's yade. That mamani chanju is some bani kedugala killing carcere. Something Uda. Kelende, Jindin Jada, but Gesica Tambarwa. Jingin Tondala, Jindin Jade, Letan Yomarwa. Did Tundalata, Mazu Karsore. Nepada Kurtina, the Jimbal Jade, running Nepa Kurtin the Dugo Marte, Rangi Jelly Jade Labore.
Okay, yeah. All right, so Geshe-la has just read from a commentary that he has explaining this verse. So I'm glad that, you know, we delved into this a little more here, because what the commentary does is takes each line and explains it further. And in these like little these 4-line stanzas are packed with information like background that might not be apparent until you're reading the commentary. So here in the fourth line in the Tibetan, let's see if it's okay. In contests, I will certainly secure my fame and fortune. Now wait, one moment. If I've done contests, okay, yeah. Here it says in my English, in contests, I will certainly secure my fame and fortune and public renown. Geshe-la has read directly from the commentary, and what it says is here we have fame and fortune. Let's see, Nepa Nedang Kotri. So this is like renown and respect. And what's being said about renown and respect is that we must always pay renown and respect to the bodhisattvas, and it even in the commentary lists lekbar.
Legend.
Yeah, the bodhisattva. It's the name of a bodhisattva. And what it's saying is that fame, it says fame and fortune here, but I'm seeing like renown and respect in the Tibetan. We should always perceive like Dakgi, so I will have regarding fame and or renown and respect, I will always and with certainty pay that to bodhisattvas, such as the Bodhisattva Lepcha. So very different meaning in when you have the commentary. It's about always coming from a place of respect for all others. And especially when we give respect to bodhisattvas, those with great qualities, then it's a very meritorious thing for us. That's what it says in the commentary.
And
also we understand that here it says this I, we're using, it uses the word I. This new I, and this is of quite importance, Geshe-la has brought it up a couple of times. This new I has taken bodhisattva vows. They've already pledged. So oneself at this point has already pledged to take on the mission of serving all sentient beings. And that means you don't forsake one single sentient being. And so that's an important point here. So, here it says him regarded as my peer and equal. But what Geshe-la is saying here is we're now making the distinction of this new I who is on a mission to serve all. And this him is others, all others. We'll pay respect for all others. Yeah. And again, in particular, it even says, into the bodhisattvas, of renown, I will, renown and respect, I will pay to them. So hopefully that's clear. Does that make more sense? Yeah. Very different meaning, is it? When you look at it like that, compared to what's written. Okay, Lasso. So maybe is it clear to people? Should we talk about it more?
I think it's clear. It certainly shows the value of studying this with a qualified teacher and the value of the commentaries, because just reading it as a regular student, I would not have gotten anywhere close to that.
Ani morangi di lapsong geshila tasir pochong ani dematse ngasu pena sikje di peche di jang pe kapsu ngasu yingchik mingchik di pena di lama sendang dempa nyamdu jangore ngasu di lokpatsamgi hako yosamare.
Teta redare ko ta ina yang ko gyurgi kebran shiran ruwa gyurtan
Really, geshela gyur papo ani sum ngaso di ani gyurwa sum yore sumdo sum tamche kensado
ale
palche ordia konsola di
ta dushira ning sangi yang gyur hata jemana ngaso dichene yang gyur phage tudin chigi tabe junjuna karsung yang chiltago.
Okay. Geshe-la said he's going to, first of all, he said that, yes, what you say is true, Janice. And also there can be like differences between the understandings of the different translators or translating groups that translated these. And he will look in another one of his commentaries on the Way of the Bodhisattva to see what those commentaries have to say about it. Now, I have to say in reviewing, I don't want to go backwards now, but I'll just say to all of you, I was reading some of the ones that we talked about last week, and I think it needs clarification in English. I wouldn't mind going back and clarifying some of those because they seem to go against some of what gets, or just not match up. So anyways, we'll see what happens.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it didn't seem to fit with where we were on the path. But let's see what happens, at least going forward here. And maybe next time I can bring up, like read back and see if you have questions. I think it started for me at about 143 or something, the questions.
Anche nyepada kurthil debathil tonda nyepada kurthil deneta semmaru ekede kaige thapsi jirwa eso kanga ranchinjin ten yongorwa tati ranchinjin le kanche ti ran inju ngone chana todung ngacho dajen jebe kadula ranchinjin kyondul tar yunten ranchinjin singede kyon tamche ke 공부 임바티 통 렌친진 연단 탐적이 갸소타고 연단 탐적이 라진 임바치 통네 따티 갈라 단다디 카돌라 테레강 란친진레 견도 따고 가래 따기 탑시치 순거래 인규란다 란친진라 nempoching 순거래.
So we're at the point here where, backtracking a little bit, understanding actually what we're trying to do here. What is the purpose of this particular verse? What's trying to be said? So we've investigated already that really zeroing in on the fault of being so self-fulfilling and full of self-agenda and so forth, and constantly going about things in that mental mode. And then, so we've looked at the negativity in that and seen all of the positivity of having a shift where we're now placing others at the center of our universe, at the center of our mission in life, and seeing all the positive things. Okay, so we've looked at that. That part has gone by. And now we're at the point of, okay, now how do we work with this? What are some of the techniques that we can use to zero in closer on all of the particular negative emotions? Jealousy towards, those superior, competitiveness towards those equals and peers. How do we work with it? That's where we are. this, and now we need to depend on like antidotal mind states and how to like transform our very habitual, thinking. That's where we are here. Di simple do ani geshela ani shuya chikla ani injikela ani inji di loma dene di ngone nyomon keru juken chikre nga kalchampore ani nga ani sebayana nga yenchik minchik topkore nge kor topkore di kensare ani nga ani pena pelcher ani nga ani gonor ani tapyang ani di yang yengere yana kensare kosola yang ani kensare
다 말라 닝구르 고도스데 람나다 토소 만디바레 데니 다 니 젠라 닝구르치니 젠 닝구르다 디제바이나 데니 베 전주세바다지 심진 젠라 닝구르체데 디제레니 데데니 니정기 니 네버도 투바치기잖아 다 가르잖아 젠라 닝구르체나 수솔 소남사가 거와 디치고 유도아 냐 닝구르 건두잖아 다 란진진 공부데 란자 대송 란진진 베 야르겐 두고도 베 팽기미도
Yeah, so I just said to Geshe-la, that honestly, for me, if I read this, and I might be mistaken, it almost looks like the way the wording is here with what I have would really be pumping up that ego, pumping up that agenda, pumping up the, here it says, I will secure my fame and fortune and public renown. It doesn't make sense. And so Geshe-la just explained that no, what is being said here is that, now we've taken on others' purpose. And so it is, and so first of all, he said that's totally inappropriate. That would be very inappropriate if we're working with our mind like that and pumping ourselves up. That is just the cause for self-cherishing to, just grow stronger and stronger. But that's not what's happening here, but that others. Yeah, we need to pacify self-cherishing. We don't need to feed the fire anymore. We need to get rid of it. That's what needs to be happening. And to get rid of it, we treat others always with respect. And when we're treating, that's what Bodhisattvas do. They put others first. They treat everybody with absolute respect. And, this also, this is such also, on the side, it's an accomplishment of merit. We really accumulate merit. But if it says here, I need respect, I need gain, I need for others to do this for me and to always praise me, this is the direct cause of an increase in self-cherishing. So that wouldn't make any sense here at all. This is not what we're doing in the training. La.
Ranjinzin Charudi, Genial Warton, Genial Wartona, Chanchusibit Savi Kare, Kellen and Galson.
Yeah.
Diga.
Really. So Geshe-la says, if that's what's being said, it's my fame and my fortune and my public renown in contests that I will, win above my peers. This is in complete contradiction of Bodhisattva vows, of the Bodhisattva attitude, because what we're doing here is whenever we're looking out for our own position to win, we're casting aside others. We've cast them aside. We want to be the winner. And this is in complete contradiction of Bodhisattva vows. And so actually this is what we're trying to block. This is what we're trying to have cease. This is what we're trying to work against. And so Geshe-la says, I doubt that's what we want to do here, is to like increase our self-cherishing. Okay. And so Geshe-la has just read again from his commentary, and it is the meaning, translation or explanation behind the last two lines, starting with in contests, where it says, I will, as for fame and respect are really the Tibetan words here. As for fame and respect, I will pay respect to the Bodhisattva lecture and others. I will constantly accomplish paying, it says, I will constantly accomplish paying respect to Bodhisattvas and others. That's what it says. So, you know, as in Renown, and it doesn't say fortune here that I can see anything about fortune, but maybe that's what Renown means. But anyways, I will pay respect. Daki ni. Okay, daki ni tankor.
Daki ni tankurtini. Zumba injang nepertupsia do. Daki is ni niepada kurti. Any chanju sebada any be simjen jene chicken zena. Then Zumba na jeng te tuba chicken sedugala. Chepop rang thing do. Rang jene chepaji. Go do.
Yeah. It's the fame and fortune and respect isn't coming to oneself. Geshe-la is saying it's the actual subject here of the sentence. It is I that is giving that to others. One isn't taking it for themselves, but they're giving it to others, such as the Bodhisattva lecture, and I will constantly, you know, work to accomplish that. That's what it says. To pay my respect.
Oh yeah. Those channels, those pen do it. Nga kurdi is na. Chanju sebe pagi tavi jisa dangal do.
Right. So if we look at it like that, now we can see why it is actually beneficial to the path and to the practice. If I'm giving it to others, I'm paying it to others, offering it to others. But if I'm saying here, I need to accomplish it for myself, that would be very contradictory to the vows that we have taken, the Bodhisattva vows we have taken. So.
Rajan Jebe Kadula, Ranjin Gun, Jenjin Yunden Jeta, Didakan Kalduda. Rangin Jinzi Gubakungilo, Manamjin the Yundungi Jin Seada. Ani Karsa Rangi Chibarangi Tunjeta, Tuanjingi Tungin, Dingin Keperto Seada, Tezudan Kalduda. The Chibarangi Tunjene, any Thunderboard of Kora Corresia, that never good thing away as in Galwachas. The Tatan Digmido.
So also, if we think about it like it says here in my English, I will certainly secure my fame and fortune and public renown. If we're thinking like that, that also is in direct contradiction to what we were studying and learning way back at the beginning in these root verses when we we're looking at the faults of self-cherishing and the qualities of serving, the greater good. This would have been in direct contradiction to the root verses that, preceded this verse. So, there was a verse, earlier on also that pointed out that, all the suffering and problems in samsara are directly related to self-cherishing. They all come down to self-cherishing, and that was in an earlier root verse here. So again, in direct contradiction to that, if we read this as I need to win, I need to gain fame and support.
eti kongla dindijin rosan te kongdal tin dindijin rosan jiten dungal chinge pa tegun raden doli jungs va dewan dobalesne dungal tamche keres jiten dewa chinge pa te jelin doli jungs e sungdo
Okay, yang kerchik
jiten dungal chinge pa tegun raden doli jung va dewa dobalesne eni dungal tamche kebares jiten dungal jiten dewa chinge pa tegun jelin doli jungs
oh that's so
te tata negumido si tigide.
And if we remember back to the verse that said that all of the suffering in samsara comes down for wishing for happiness for oneself, and all of the happiness in samsara comes down for working for the purpose of others. And so, in that case, we can see that, taking this meaning as it appears here would, totally, not work with this verse as well.
팔절때 게 gyurgen zibishi druneya de leba ingire 팔절.
Pasha di yang ani sikche ani Gemma di yang chikpare.
Ale.
Yeah.
Tadi sholuga kadari nungel tawa.
So I told Geshe-la, I'm looking at the next verse, and the next, so he again was saying, maybe it's the translator. I'm looking at the next verse, and at 148 now, and it's looking to me like we need to clarify. And Doug and Janice, I don't know who else is out there, if you have.
Diane, check the chat again, please. William,
all right.
Comment.
Okay, got it. That's true, but it still doesn't make sense of why this new I. Okay, so William, I see your comment. So this new I, yes, it is already exchanged. This is the evolved I, but why would the evolved I be saying that they will outstrip someone else?
Well, I think that at least the translators seem to believe that at this point, we're putting ourselves in the place of the competitive person and imagining how they look at us. So we are being the competitive person looking back at ourselves and seeing how we're going to thwart ourselves. Does that make sense? Like we're imagining being our own antagonist.
Yes,
that seems to agree with what I'm reading in this, the Nectar of Manjushri's speech.
Okay, yep. Okay, so then if that's the case, this I is the old I, am I right? That I might...
It's the I of the other.
It's the I, it's the other person, like it's the person that's, I don't know, in this case, if it's the person that's lower than you, he's looking at you and saying that I might excel outstripping him. So it's the other person looking at you that's saying this.
Like we're imagining ourselves as the other person looking back at us and like, how are we going to, but I don't know that agrees with the Tibetan. It just seems to be how this has been interpreted.
Okay, so I guess what I'm wondering is here in 147 then, if that's the case, that I might excel stripping him. So I and him we need to identify. So this I is so that's what I'm asking you. And you're in that understanding, the I might excel in outstripping him. The I is still the competitive one, the one that has not evolved.
Right, and
correct?
the him is me, right? I'm being him looking back at me. So the I is him and the him is me.
So the him, okay.
I is the inferior
Put
person.
down the shovel. So
Is
the
it
him,
inferior?
hold on, Janice. So one second. So the him then, the him, that's okay. So I got the I. The I is the one who is feeling competitive. And the him is the equal, or?
Well, they are both equal, but the him is the subject of that competitiveness.
Right.
Which is self, which would be you. But from the other person's point of view, right? So because the two things are interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel, and I think that's all because everything is in quotes, like 141 all the way through 151, all the way to 154. All those, every verse is surrounded by quotes in the Bachelor version. So only 140 is like the introduction. But here we are going to exchange ourselves, and this is what you're going to think once you've exchanged yourself with the other person.
Okay, so I get it. What you're saying is this I that's here is you've put yourself in their place.
Yeah, it's like you're taking on the role of that person and imagining all the negative thoughts so you can overcome them.
Mm-hmm.
That may not be the right interpretation. That doesn't seem to be how Geshe-la is interpreting it. That seems to be how this translator interpreted it.
The two don't fit together, but the two both fit well stand alone. Like if we look at it the way you just said and we look at the way Geshe-la just said. Okay, sorry, Janice. Did you want to add something, Janice? Okay. Lasso Geshe-la.
Yeah, that correct. Oi. Didn't try me though. That correct.
Not so pena injikela di tridok di nga danko sure nga to di kapsu nga seri di
Yamani dus gopshagya ngajena. Zata nyamla tönani kangi dani laji chirse sungdo. Ta daki nyetang kurthini chumba inchir nge partu sedegala ta dichebaina chi tampo di da data simjen thamjela ri la soba nyambar esi ani chanju seba inanda te be ri la soba te randa nare ti sedegala yenden sokka kai ri yenden la te toga ta chanju seba randa esi kurthi ta dagi nyepatang kurthi ni chanju sefa lachin ditang chumba injang ngepro tu percao sidgala chanju sefa lachin de chanju sefa chimi sukan ji sungudo tigitala ani be nyepata kurthi da tesu tuina sonam rangla sagre sid ngepro tu gorde rangi sonam sagre sid kwa chi Yani chancellor majarche. Ani ranchinzin da sidigala da chimade ranchinzin thubu ye degindi never to do res. ngepa kurti tejo pa ko ranchizi wange shu chubutu grace.
That's all.
Ani ra nyimpa degi ranchinzin rugore das dajin je sange kansa degi jenchinzin dichene ni pe sonmla put sagriz de duschi kogi chena kardo.
Okay, so how about Geshe-la is re-looking at this and investigating more into the commentary and has offered this, that those we regard as our peers and equal, as it says in the text, that means, all those sentient beings, be it from, bodhisattvas with qualities down to, sentient beings that hold, simply the quality of being, like having Buddha nature, of being of the same, like family and potential. When we regard all of them, and especially bodhisattvas, with respect and high regard, then this is an accumulation of merit. So this is one way to understand, and bodhisattvas, and it names that bodhisattva leksha. That's one way to understand it. But also, Geshe-la said, how about if we look at that as zeroing back in on the individual who has not yet evolved to an altruistic attitude and who is very much all about themselves and indeed all about wanting to secure their own fame and fortune and public renown, and looking again at that very rigid self-centered attitude of I need to accomplish this for myself, I need to accomplish that for myself, and seeing the fault in that. So when we read it at seeing this I, that it says, I will certainly secure my fame and fortune and public renown, I will outstrip him, etc., etc. If we're peering back, as you mentioned, William, if we're peering back into that old attitude and looking at it from afar, and re-examining it, if we look at this verse like that, how do people feel about that? Does it fit?
Achare engine gyuru so nejin tenji redui.
Yeah, Pelchen dere Geshe-la nge ani
Engine
Srapachena.
gyune ta phachar tenji so tejiba ina ko nigalan chi dela ranchinjin shu chubo yodege ta nga nyepa ko ye kursi ko ye kanga nga ko ye zelabgurwa.
Really, trigger them.
Ani jenchinjin jegen dela any tila toba meba any pe sonam sai tabjila jenge any pe rida tezulo yunden kurti la soba danda la yondugala kunin redur tansa midwa kitere pet thashal chabar chidegala shirag sonam sai yuza chabar te kebar chagdwa.
So we can look here, if we look at this verse in two different ways. In the first way, as it's written, Geshe-la says, as we're all saying it, it seems to be written in English, of, I need to win. It's, being important is, being regarded is more important, and the winner is what I want. I will win. I will secure my fame and my fortune. In this way, we're zeroing in and looking at the faults of self-cherishing. We can see how egotistic and self-centered that kind of an individual is. So it gives us, through that lens, seeing that. And the second way, like as Geshe-la read in the commentary, of seeing that others, respecting all others, being as equally respectful of anyone, no matter who it is, how that is an accumulation of merit and actually is about, switching gears here. Instead of self-importance, it's importance for others. And so it's showing you how to switch gears and shift your attitude. So that is also beneficial. So both of these ways that we look at it can be beneficial. In one way, we look at the narrow-mindedness of I must win, and we see the benefit of saying, you know, I will, you know, all my peers and all others I will respect. So that's also beneficial. So, and then whichever way, you know, whichever way you look at it, whichever helps you the most is beneficial for you and helpful for you. Look at it like that.
That Dinan Densem Siadang, any Nigel Siadang, and Tato Siadu, Numunching Densem, the Numunching in Nigel, the Numunching Tato, then Zong in Mares is Sundu. They get the Mare. Mingi Tagarmata, Tinguni Mares.
So again, a reminder here that this is absolutely, so we're talking here, you know, each verse takes, for example, a particular mental affliction, jealousy, competitiveness, pride, and arrogance. But it's 100%, it says, you know, here in the commentary and in the instructions, it is not about the actual states, emotional states themselves, about the negative emotions. It's about like jealousy itself and examining jealousy, examining pride. So we use the words pride and jealousy, but it's not about instilling those and arising them, but actually working with them, managing them. Are you getting sore? Do you guys need to like move around to take a break here? Ani Geshe-la kirang ani kirangi ani jopakarire.
Mata Kiparamido. Kajitati Kujunindo Niga Samdana Digido.
There's two interpretations that both can be taken here, and both are appropriate. And so we can work with them both. They would just work from different directions.
Ani Junjun Deva Yeba Delta, Jamayankur Kajichechi.
And Geshe-la said he will consult another this like more extensive commentary, and we can talk more about that next time. So we can talk more about it. Ani di kangel dire injikela pelcher di kangel di yangre pena dene dak dang jen ni yorwa dene dakla yang ani dak rangchenjen
da Nimbaji the Sarbaji Niungura.
Re
Da Nimpare, Ranchinzin Kumbuing is that the Nimpare. Tele Mingore and then Gore Takanga Kologore.
These are Papo Sure. Sometimes the Che Papo, the Sikrup di Nanga Che Papo Su Yinmin, Dak Sapa Dang Yamana Dak Nimpa, and Tam di support.
Di da Kagajana Sing Amani, Sing Amazada, Yamla Stuna, Nezaki Rangi, Laji Chilsi, the Dachidua. Di that da Sarpadici. Da Sarpade, and Nibe Ranchinzi, Jinji, and then that and Simjenda, Nip Janju Seba the ring Yamba in Batone, and Nibe Tele Chikarsore. Jenla ni kurti dan jenla dichetche ta da dinge da kurti ni ze zumba jinge per tup siade da nyingpade ta pe ranchin ji kumbu inde da tegi ani nga mingo yo nga kurti go yo nga chu go is la ya de ni khonin den dur ta.
So I just
tangi ni din la gorta Jama name Tudinchiki Tapatin Tane, Yangur Shigiji.
So there's a Dharma Kirti
두든 죽이라봐. 두든 죽이라봐.
Totin Chugirapa.
예. 준준 대화 개바지어래. 딘을다고.
So there's an extensive commentary Geshe-la is going to look, and I expressed that for me reading the English, what's important to clarify is when it says I, is it the new I, or like you were saying, go back, it's the, the old I. Geshe-la is saying there are two I's that are being used. And there's the one with the new vision and one that had all of the old neuroses well in place. And Geshe-la said in the beginning, so in 147, in the beginning, the first sentence, this I is the new I, and in the second part of the same verse, it's the old I, the one that wants their fame and fortune and public renown. So anyways, that can get a little confusing. Also, is it the new I that's doing things or the old I? So he said he'll look and we'll clarify all that.
Yeah, 다 그래. 다 이타 주버져 맞중대 간제 다 솔로가 가져래.
Okay, so I just want to, that's Shua. So I don't know who typed what, I guess, from Indiana Buddhist Center. Okay, so where it says, in order that I might excel, he was regarded equal with me, right? That doesn't have the outstripping. So that I might excel outstripping him is in one, but in the second one, it's not. I do not see outstripping him in the Tibetan. In order that I might excel, he was regarded equal with me. That's how I read the Tibetan. Anyways, I don't see winning or outstripping. I think they miss, there's a verb that is here that they might have.
야다 강대는 대섬당규르다.
That's so.
야, 다이다 윤된 트라팔은 좀 봐스 당이 받대. 윤된다 다 트라팔은 좀 봐스. 진네다게 윤된이 지denkul라 살와 당스. 제 니 윤된강 수견 통원 민규자시 디디가라 다 제법랑기 윤된다 지된 가르지나데 답에 통주시여 버레스 만아주 수시 윤된데 지부여 말와 배 시부 배 살포레 배 윤된데 전부 가리나데 지여 말레스 제 전주 세배 윤된데 타에 버레스 윤된 수견이 배 원투비야도 수견한테 배 통투비야던데 말레스 전주 세발이 윤된 생김 잡아요레스 다티 렌드르체다 전주 세배 윤된데다 수스키 윤된데도 말아주 어때 나진체나 데라 랑친지 투보 여기 라다다 저지 젠친지 여기가 라니라 내 요마즈는 팔전 더번 차거든.
건다 드네 랑친진 치킨
라텔라 니바도 쿠티 고레스 젠친진 쟁에 라텔라 니바도 쿠티 고 마르베 강갈 차임발 타도 그래 덴디제디제데라 양 지금 디도 맞지 두스시나 고세게나 디 sartanda dinala yenden da tapal ente basiate ta tere ranchinjin tangana so susiki gi yenden dan tegdi pe tapadu shira ki yachembuyo mare ganga 통주시여 말에 뉴뉴마다 요 말에스 전주 세배 연된 생인데 타에 말에 가서 원투비야 요 말에서 숨는데
맞어.
개버도와
오케이 디스르포도 Dene sula kutri chigore.
Can't you say?
Okay, lasso. So we're on verse number 148, where, I'm sorry, yeah, 148, where we're
48
looking,
map.
ah,
Oh, 48 re.
Re.
Re. 48, yeah.
Digiona.
Yeah.
Okay, so verse number 148 speaks about renown, fame and renown. So here it says, by every means, I'll advertise my gifts to all the world, ensuring that his qualities remain unknown, ignored by everyone. And so in regards to qualities, this is in regards to qualities in oneself and others. And so when it comes to qualities that the Bodhisattvas hold, actually, we can't even see the qualities in Bodhisattvas. They are beyond our even comprehension. So we have those that are of exalted qualities, and then we have just ordinary, normal beings that have, you know, their own qualities. And so, yeah, the Geshe-la, the Korla, Hana di Jangchup Sempa, Konso di Yonten, ani Senle, Semgi Mikyapare.
Semgi mikyabayo res. Ani ngazo ngun tongtuya megente, sukyang tongtuya megente, ni yende fatu mebayo res. Ngazo ngun tu marese sore.
Lasso.
Ani ngazo jiba sisi ki yende go yondare go salfore nyung jumada yo mare. This hakogo bares la ladre.
Okay. And then for ordinary beings like, you know, us ordinary beings, you know, their qualities are limited. They are few and they are limited and they can be seen, you know, they're, you know, evident. But when it comes to bodhisattvas, you know, they're just beyond our comprehension. And to directly even know the qualities they possess, we just can't know that.
단 딜라타나 전주 세배 연된데다 말아도 집어스기 연댕이 고 렌드로 당거도.
And so this is leading up to the fact that the qualities, the great qualities of bodhisattvas and those of ours, you know, or of ordinary beings, then there's like a little bit of like a friction. There's a like competition between that, you know, there can be potential kind of competition between those that are of ordinary qualities and those of exalted qualities from the context of the narrow-minded one who's still full of self-clinging.
단 디다 인지 그룹은 라보드웨.
So and Geshe-la is asking if this accords with all of our translations. So I'll reread mine and then maybe Janice, you could reread one. Or read one. By every means, I'll advertise my gifts to all the world, ensuring that his qualities remain unknown, ignored by everyone.
By all means, I shall make clear to the entire world all the good qualities I have, but I shall not let anyone hear of any good qualities he may have.
So Geshe-la is asking you, do those accord? Do we have a third? I think we do.
Were my good qualities to become apparent to everyone in the world, then no one would even hear of his good qualities. And Doug, I think, has those on the chat.
Yeah. By all means, I shall make clear to the entire world all the good qualities I have. Is that the one I have? No. But I shall not let anyone hear of any good qualities that he may have. So what Geshe-la has asked, does that fit with what he said, or are we back in our... Okay, that's what Shenyang Di.
Yunden Kang Sido. Dinda Jusa the Chanju Sebaja, Chanju Sibi Yunden, and be Suikan be Suikan Tor Mingros, Suikan Tontu Mares, be Cabores, Maran Chibasugi, Tarawa Yunden, Chanju Seba in a Yunden, Sa Oma Koma the Yunden Cheruguro. Tinida Zotan Zurtubia Yomara.
So Geshe-la is saying that in the line where it says ensuring that his qualities remain unknown, ignored by everyone, his qualities mean Bodhisattva's qualities. Immature beings, ordinary, human beings like ourselves cannot, could not even, think about the amazing qualities of his. His means a bodhisattva. And remember that there are many different stages of development of a bodhisattva, and as they progress along the different stages, the different bhumis, their qualities just keep, emerging and, perfecting and emerging, and they're really, quite incomprehensible. And immature, ordinary beings could never, know them. Could never come to even know what, we can't even, conceive of them. And so Geshe-la is asking, in the English that we're seeing, does this match with his commentary?
Not so much, because in the Bachelor translation, those last two lines are, but I shall not let anyone hear of any good qualities he may have.
Right. Mine says the same. I will ensure that his qualities remain unknown.
It's easier. Sorry. It's easier for me to wrap my head around these verses if I use William's approach, that the I is someone who is equal to me, looking at me, and having this negative attitude. They're self-cherishing and
and this his, so I would agree. And this his, because Geshe-la made sure to point out now who we're talking about. This his are bodhisattvas, meaning other people. So it's the self-cherishing one that says, like, by every means I'll advertise my gifts, ensuring that his qualities remain unknown. So if this is the unevolved I, the way they looked at the world when they were self-cherishing and all about themselves, this is the way they would view the world and others.
Yeah, going back to what William was saying, I'm seeing that if we go all the way back to verse 140, it says, take others, lower, higher, equal, as yourself. Identify yourself as other, then without another thought, immerse yourself in envy, pride, and rivalry. So this seems to be instructions for a meditation. And then there's a whole section, including verses 141 through 154, that is that meditation. And during that whole, and we're in the middle of that, and during that whole meditation, we have done that flip. And so when it says his, that refers to, self. And
okay, all right. I think we started last week on 141. Is that right? That's what I have in my notes. So
that's right.
Okay, so I see. So this had happened like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I meant I'd have to zero in on that.
So we're
Okay,
in,
got it.
yeah, so we're in the middle of this whole
Got it.
section where we've done that switch.
I think what's interesting, if I can comment, I'm sorry to jump in, but it seems like either way you look at it, it does work, because if you can either be meditating, imagining yourself as that person looking back at you, or you can imagine being yourself looking at the Bodhisattva.
Yeah.
And either way, it's the same thing, because you're feeling these things towards the Bodhisattva, even as the person you're competing with is feeling them towards you.
Shologa truso mardo.
Ani jiregeshila bena di dak nyumpa dang sapa gikolare ani dene sikje gyadang shipchula then that's dak dang jen jebogyap nang shin gotsupare ani gyadang shipchupa la di dakshan dangjen jeparsane dene di gotsupare dene tandagi
Inju the Dajin Jemne, Anita Page Karsore. Dajin Jemne, Ani Karsore. Dorfenda, Tembada, Yebershibani, Yebershiba de La, Ani Toala Tado Gunsul, Nyambalan Denton Gonsul, Membala Nigel Gonsul, Gumbendibu the Jichene, Ani Toala Tado Gonsul the Shetare. Tatiring Nyambalan Densun Gonsul the Chadre.
lasso.
Inju Sholoka Chebaina Sholoka Yadang Tuju Reptimbadre, Tangpode. Tatanda Rogode Yada Tuju Ringi Padre. Repke Pade. Chidaki Yundan Seade.
Really, di sorbodo, di pelcher dire, di gyadang shi chupala, ani dene mensok dak du chepa, ani jebo gap gore, ana dak dang jen jebo gap gore, dene jen nidu ni dak chene. Dene tande kapsu dak lapna dene ngone jen gidon dak ani yorgeres.
Tade Tant Tinguni Yongorwa, Murchente Yongorwa, Karzana, Dajin Jetsarwa, Jetsarneta, sometimes Lagorwa.
Ani de jebo gap sane dak ni lapna di ngone gi jen gidon dak yore.
Oh, that Jen Jinzin Yung Ding in Datre. Jen Jinzin Zo Jing in Datre. Any Ranchin Zo Jing in the Ladang Baz Tangin Tagado.
Okay, lasso dene country shuya chik year dene gyadang ship chu nangla jen yidu ni dak chene
Yada Jubade.
Vela.
Dini Kurche Dak Zanimin, Dijin Dak Magnet Ching. Dini Tucha Zalame.
Di marela gonda culture di antrangi keba yogere mensok dak du chepa dang jen nidu
Ala. Oh, Menso Datu Chebadan. Yeah.
Ani dila dene identify yourself as others. Jen yidu ni dak chene. Di tsik di pelcher di nato di kangel dire kangin sena danta rangi sikje didang jalwa ani yore di gyadang kedangi angtang la gyadang katsure.
Jibjubade.
Juba gyadang si chupa dela dene ani jen nidu ni dak chene.
Jenny Dine Vajane, Namto Meben Densimsu, Taton de Nagal Goms Zunda.
Yeah, so identify yourself
Din
as others.
Dorfende.
Re.
Dorthengi Chitri.
Re. Yena tanda gi kapsu dak lapna tanda gi kapsu sikche tanda gi kapsu dingone dak sana mune gi shen gi dondak ani yogire kangin sena
Dedere Jinjin Zo Jingin Zatrwa.
naso.
Rajin Jet Sarne Jinjin Zo Jingin Zatre.
Okay. Naso.
Ere Ingu.
Okay. So I was saying to Geshe-la, as you brought up, Doug, that going back to 140, that identify yourself as other, though that wording. And so what I've expressed to Geshe-la is if the current verses that we're studying are all related to this very phrase, where we are now in the position of identifying ourselves as other, I said that means, all other sentient beings, but Geshe-la is saying what this means, this other is the self-clinging, narrow-minded old self. Not others, all other sentient beings. But you are now, so now it makes sense to me. Understanding that, now it makes sense to me. Because this new I that says, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna get gain, and so this is the old self-clinging, self. So we are now putting ourselves back in the way we used to be. And as Geshe-la said, we had the very condensed version of explanation, and now the extended version. 140 is the condensed version of what we're going to do.
Tigi tape tigi geshe de ndordi chinten gorwa. Marza da mason di chadiore.
Yeah. Every when it says something succinctly here later, it expands on it, so to explain further. But now if we jump ahead to where we are, 148, right? Are we at 140? Yeah, 148. By every means, I'll advertise my gifts. So when it says, I'll advertise my gifts, this is the old you. You're looking back at the old you that used to be like that. That's what I'm understanding. Up until this point, I'm not saying this is the final answer here, because Geshe-la will look. But now it makes sense to me. I'll advertise my gifts to the world and ensure that his qualities remain known. So in the old way that we used to think, we wanted all the accolades for ourselves and want to don't let anyone know about the goodness in others. And so now it makes sense to me. Yeah, Janice?
Considering that though, then what do you do with in verse 140?
140.
What do you do with lower, higher, and equal? If you're saying that others is your old self-cherishing self, then how is that old self-cherishing self lower, higher, and equal?
Yes, and so that's why I thought take others as your self. I agree. Okay. Okay, Geshe-la. Andrea, and Yana, take it away.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dindrayana, ani pena gyadang shipchupala, jen nidu ni dakchene, jen nidus ani jens pena rang chinjin ki gangsak, yana dine siktu tampola ani mensok daktu chepadang. Ani dine yana dine siktu tampola koa kandeswangore la.
Menso sidigalarwa. Janju sepa simjin rangle member. Simjin rangle toso samlu gachunchun dangandela menso sigore. Ranchinjin chumbo yongendela.
Oh la so.
Janju sepa ge. Wata tendegi member dan nyamba rangle la paso miyul de chene.
Oh la so.
Miyul de chene di ta kosa foyare
Oh, di sokpa. Men
Oh.
sok di la sokpa eh.
Oh.
Oh la so dene inji ke la di towa. Towa yang tridu.
Ah?
Men la sokpa gi chedu. Right? Men sok sena la sokpa.
members 되가라 또서 삼루게 충중당은 또서 연된 충중 용인들라 멤버라 그러와.
La so dene la sokpa. Sok. Sok is la sokpa.
손디나라다 랑레 냠바
Rangle towa yang ani digi ani ayo.
디너도 랑 냠바당 라바소 미율디체네스 랑라 냠바당
Oh la.
랑레 마와
냠바.
랑레 냠바 랑레 토와 토멘 버숨데도와
Oh la. Towa yang.
오
Oh.
미율디체네 다도체 바당스 다니 젠디체네 다 고사 란친디 따기 란친디 여사들라 젠친디 요겐데자 젠친디 여사 란친디 요겐 고사페니 다 섬타야데 티숭고르바
Mhm.
티체바이나 카르세오나 란친진데 살루와레
Mhm.
인규 란친진 현치르 통과레 티탑지레
Mhm. Lasso, dene siktu nibala kirang gens nido ni dakchene. Gen seriede, dene gen seriede di rang chenzen ki gangsak.
다 젠세다 다디 회사교 되는다 젠진진 란진진 투부 영에 가사들 차대로와
Lasso, yena siktu gonda kani yenayan siktu tampola di toa la sopa nangla ani toa yang ani sigi yona. Dene ngato di toa.
랑레다 심진 젠데 땅까마요로와 장마요디 테나라 랑레 라파다 용그라 랑라 냠바 용그라 랑레 멤바 용그라
Okay, lasso.
랑전 지르와
Lasso, dene toa sena, dene di kapsu toa sena di pena di tokpa gi yonten gi kola yosamare, tokpa. Pena di gom nyam, tokpa gi kola yosamare.
똑바다 랑레 라파스기도 라파스디 야가 선지 고에로와
Lasso, yene di pena gom gi tok tse gi kola yosamare, tok tse gom.
대담면도
O lasso. Kangin sena jen sena tene rang chensen ki.
오다 단다디나 랑 지디갈라 라진 제 차네 다 삼루 다 차네 라진 제 차네 가사지 까지 거와 랑진지 젠진지 쩐데 통 랑진지 젠진지 연된 통 차네 데데 가사 되겠다 그 삼백 지수투술 가수 간데지 레제 데까지 거와 인규란다
Lasso. Dene menpa toa dang nyam sena di pena konso gi nyam sulen gi tok se gi kola yosamare.
다 젠나라 panto toa 용구로와 용도 용구로와
Lasso.
간스간 란진진 위견도 젠진진 연된 통인데 가사지로와 알레 딱 콜레 젠다나라 코란레 젠베나라 코란레 panto toa 용구로 panto 마 용으로 panto 냠바 용구로와
Yeah, Lasso. So Janice, to answer your question, the others that we are, take others as yourself. Geshe-la still says that the others we're taking as ourselves are still people who have self-concern. And so I questioned this lower, higher, equal. So if we're taking others as still being someone with self-concern, I get that with the lower and the equal, but I didn't get it with the higher. So how can someone higher still have self-concern? So I wondered if this higher didn't mean in terms of spiritual practice, but just meant something different. Like
Didwa, Jen Sidigalata, Simchin Tamjas on the Jirwa, Ranle Jemba.
Yeah.
Ranzita, Rajin Jet Sarnikaza, Chiku Kachirwa. But the Jenala, where Ranjin Tupu Young and Jayore, Ranjin Jet Jendang Ranle Pondo Nanyamba Jungre, and it tell Hapa Jungro.
Lasso, okay, di yempa samgi, dis ngala serpoto, yana di yana, dene kerang yang di sumpa yensare, tanda bekapsu, pena jen nidu ni dak chene, jen di rang chenzen ani yerken ki sang gangzak rang chinzin ani topo an ki gangzak yenayang kong ani tokpa yena pena di lamgi yonten ki tokpa yena rang kandas rang chinzin yong sigire
Tap
na jen di kapsu jen ngato pena nga jen Jendu ani debo gap gore. Jen nidu ni dak chine.
Tab Miula Jen Siditi Miul de Nakare Jen Siente Nala Ranle Nyamba, Ranle Memba, Ranle La Pasunga Ungre.
Lasso.
Miul Nala te Sunga Ungre te Tan Dirsa de Karen Dirgores. Ranle memba de la tape ranjinzi shu chumboyeza dirsa de telen dirgurwa. Tati ti tonta de chigurwa. Ani ti kyon de tawora ranjinzi tubo yonge ranjinzi kyon de tongurwa. Ingu ranjinzi tonta ngoma de ranjinzi kyon talerwa.
So
Tentang mata ranjinzi kyon talere. Tadung nem salrutare kyon kazo tobudo.
So Janice, I'm gonna explain Geshe-la's what he's saying, and then if you still have a question, then just let me know, because we might need to go at it from a different direction. So when it says here in verse number 40, take others, lower, higher, and equal as yourself. So we're putting ourselves in the place of all others, and all others come in all different kinds of like tendencies, proclivities, levels of understanding, levels of realization. There are going to be some. See, now it's like a slippery slope, because when I say the I and the you, we forget who we're talking about. But when you're exchanging yourself for all others come in all different, all different levels. And you're now putting yourself in others' place. And Geshe-la says there's all kinds of people. But what we're trying to identify is putting ourselves back in the place of someone who generates negative emotions of competitiveness, jealousy, and pride. And re-looking at them from, investigating and looking into them, identifying them objectively, not being entrenched in them, but identifying them from an objective, area, and seeing the fault in it, and therefore working, to manage that and seeing that's not okay, shouldn't do that. So that when we step back into ourselves as an actor, you know, and someone who engages with things, we would have already seen the fault in it from that other view. And understanding that within the world, you know, the human world, there's all kinds of different levels of human, higher, equal, and superior to us, or to the mind that compares themselves to others. And so if you have more questions, then you can let me know.
저자 그 디제의 란친진 균 살레게 돈다 인들라 란다 냠바들라 티그니 균 라예요 말와 토고네 균 라야 민도 균 라사데 멤베그니 라그로 왔다 멤버게 란친지 슈 총부지도 갈라다 티 균데 통그로 와
네네네.
유연된 제모요가니 균 통해요 말아 란친지 균티 딜라 연된 이제 티 란친지 지금 말와 냠바다 수수 냠바 인자 이 수수 강 여기까지 뜬 라본마다 통해요 말와 다 멤베간니 균 몽부 통그로 와 란친지 균 안지 균 살사들이 이나 젠낭라 연된 랑라 냠바 요레 멤바 요레 토아 순가 요레 살사들 딜사데 따랑레 멤바들 딜고 부레
Laso yang care do do chana
안지 단다디 랑 시디가라 라진 제 차네 다 라진 제네
okay
라진 제 차네 다베 진진진이 연된 동 라진진이 균 통차능이 가사지 시거라 랑 시디 데리 가사지리
okay
다 젠시디가라 젠나라 그런래 젠바 차장 수공 거라 다 주변에는 뭐마데 젠진진이 란진진이 균살레 란진진이 껴데 란레 빠도 터지거니 균통 말와 냠발은 손투미도 나 통사데 가려나 마마마마 지르게나 란진진 균용인데 배 멤버들이 띠근다 균들 통고로
So also Geshe-la is pointing out that when we look at an individual who has already come to the understanding and has already had the mental shift of other cherishing, they've already seen the fault in self-cherishing, they cherish others more dearly than themselves. When they see others who are superior or equal, they won't see any fault in that. But when they see someone who is inferior, then they conso di mawa dela conso di kyun tongi yore.
dela ta ranjin mawa dela ranjin shu chumbo yorwa.
Okay. So
shu
when
chumbo
we
yor inza ku gyonde tongurwa.
Okay, yeah. So when we speak about inferior, the reason they see fault in someone inferior is what this inferior implies is those that are inferior are still full of self-cherishing. So they do indeed. So you yourself, in the new position of someone who is turned over this new leaf, will see someone who hasn't and are inferior, is the language used here, and still full of self-cherishing. That will be recognized, and a fault will be recognized in that. I think William has a question or needs to go, is waving goodbye, I'm not sure.
지금 원이잖아 라젠 제 차네 300주 봐서도 갈라 라젠 제 차네 아니 다 라젠 제 차네 미디게 섬줄 간데지 대간데 람 간데지 두고 거다 때까지 시거라 인규란다 어다 때 인디갈라 아니 니는 디드도 전주 세바 semchen rangle membatang nyambatang rangle lapaso miyul de chene esik sungdo miyul de chene Dhatu chepa dance, rangi shendu chepa dance.
Sikche katsula.
Tanda di jipchu takin dewa tere.
Oh, lasso. Oh, yeah.
Jipchu pen dewa.
Oh, lasso. Young lasso.
Dhatu chepa dance de ala rang jinjin ki kyun tong shen jinjin yenden tong nyamnen jindekin kaza teki kachishi gorwa.
Oh, lasso.
Rangi shendu chepa dance. Ta rangi ta kosa foyar. Samlu kosa de foyar. Susu pagi rang jinjin chu chumbo yendeki samlu de tang. Ani shendu chene dhadun zimbe. Le kosa foyne ngeshi tang tesum namdo mebe semsu. Rajin jeba gombe chanchu seba lachinsi. That
Okay, so
di indicala tela nipe chato tang nyambalan densem member ngagel gomsu di ngone chena densem ngone mare chato ngone mare ngagel ngone mare ngagel de fobar inju foba la ngagel ni minta inju ta 가르잖아 던다 뭐마데 란친진 현대 때기 물 잘네 통요래 더둥 배 사루 땅에래
lasso, yeah.
그 집차도 던 잘거래 인주 견데 란친진 견 잘하고 바래
Okay, so I think I might have just anyways, Geshe-la says here that what we're looking to do is identify two perspectives. There's this perspective of the way that someone who is still full of self-agenda and self-concern sees things. And there is the way that someone has seen the fault in that. They've seen the light, so to speak. They've seen the fault in that. They've seen all the positive qualities and goodness and altruism, and they have a different perspective. So there's two different mind thinkings, ways to look at things. So what I just have thought about and am realizing, and Geshe-la says that this other is not the way we're thinking it of all other sentient beings, like all others. When we are, when it says identify yourself as other, it means as the other one who has the other perspective. And this meaning, put yourself back in the place of someone who's full of self-clinging. So not full of putting myself, so this is my thinking, in the place of all others, people, we would say in English, if I were in his shoes, or if I was in someone else's shoes. It's not like that. We're not identifying with the people who are being trampled on. We're identifying with someone with a new state of thinking. That's what I'm feeling we're going. So when I read this, identify yourself as other, there's self and there's all others. But I don't think that's what's being said here. I think what's being said here is identify yourself as someone who has already crossed over and is in Bodhisattva thinking. Or other meaning in that self-clinging, tight-minded thinking. That's what other means here. So anyways, one more question, Geshe-la.
Yeah.
Okay, just to clarify. So in verse number 140, Gyadangshi Chupala, Sikang Nipala, Jen Nidu Ni, Jen Sena Rang Chenzen Dang Yerpegi Gangza.
Mal, ta rang le jemba zata tinala. Rang le memba yungure, la nyamba yungure, la pa yungurwa.
Okay, Mi Kat Kangla, okay.
Oh, ta jen zide tizu kanga yore. Tine di sungdo, nere nala. chanchu sepa rangle membadang nyambadang rangle lapa so sidu son so sigdo mi yul de chenes ta mi bi yul te tezu kangachu om gyala mi bi yul te kangachu ne da tu che badans rangi jen du chene ta rang jen samtang jen rang samtang yare da dunzimbe le kosa fuene ne shedang tesum namdo mebe semsu se sungdo ta be pena chanchu seba legend tabuina ta legend ane be karsore ran le jembala chato ta kimajure jengi solo kuruata tendiche bayina chato de kimajure chene ane be kaso tup oda mi kuruata tigalada o te ngone mare sam chene ane be chato kimaju samtaya dang ane densem dang tezu ta kimijuyar madong chato ngone mare chato mihiel beare ta 아니 그 연대요 말살라베나 연된다 연del라 계급기 연된지 요래 잔급기 연된지 요래 그 라베데 덴바 말데 연된들라 아니 베 뜻을 던져는 거라 같이 제여라 같이 충여라 남자 제여라 같이 충여라 tapi 그러면 된데서 섬도 대당해라 아니 연대는 제셔서 상기야 리드리 디 리딩 가서 간간 된다요 연대요 말세야들 유제미도 삼단 된디도와 어도 된디 삼단다지 간제 란 진진배 아주 두두 란 진진이 견 따라기 삼로 인규 탑시래.
Okay, so going back to 140, where this all began, this visualization of technique of such to kind of revisit scenarios or make scenarios that we can see the right and wrong in acting certain ways. And Geshe-la is saying what we're looking to do is identify like the negativity in acting a certain way, and in identifying that we can see that it's wrong, and it kind of purifies it. Like that's not, what we want to be doing. So in 140, when it says others, so I asked him again about this other, the lower, higher, equal as yourself. At this point, it does mean, so there's self and others. It does mean all others. Identify with them, and how would like most other people act? They would act out of envy, pride, and rivalry. So the new self is thinking that, okay, I'm going to put myself back in the old place and revisit all these like destructive and dysfunctional feelings. And the new self can see how it was wrong. So there is the new self watching all of this happening. So for example, in the next verse where it says, he's the center of attention, I am nothing, unlike him, I'm poor without possessions. So we're acting like kind of revisiting, kind of the old way of being, or how most people would be, or how our old self would have been, jealous of others and so forth. And so Geshe-la says, basically what we need to know is this is like showing us how we have the proclivity to be jealous of those superior, competitive with those who are equal, and superior and prideful to those who, we feel are inferior. And to look at that and see the, how it's wrong. That's what Geshe-la has just offered here. Does anyone have any want further clarification or have anything to offer? Okay.
가르쳐서.
강양 제마송. consola kerang ani condition shandak ani yorepe ani drolling mangwa chego upe na laps lapayin.
다 인도 디수강가 nembochira rancinzin kyonzalegi tabshire ingurana rancinzin kyonzalegi tabshire.
This all acts as an antidote to, you know, our own like self-clinging and seeing the destructive actions that come out of self-clinging. These are all to identify and to be used as remedies or antidotes to this. It kind of shows the faults. It kind of lays it out again. So it's already after 6 o'clock, 10 after 6. Was it a problem? We just went straight till after 6 with no break.
Yeah.
Is that okay for everyone? Yeah, this has been really good, Geshe-la says, actually. This discussion and bringing these things up has been very good. And he will again refer to his other commentary. The Drelwa Shendaki Tsenkarere Genla.
Tudin Chugitabe Lusupum Zanzer there. Dewa Chambuja.
Oh, the people, oh, Lasso, yeah.
Dinalta sang Dinaltavo. Dila sometimes Niga when it turned Yundan Trapal and Dembasity, this self Saljandua. Dajin Jet Sangi Yuki Yundan da, any pay or Taco, Letang Bubare de Argentini, Rajan Jetigala, and Nipe, Genjin Yundan Tong, some Limato, Rio Marwa. Did the Chanju Seva Gigi Yundan in Latsa, but taken the Lurtan Sakura Yomarwa.
Yeah.
What a tea, this is Salvador. Daddy, Sholoka, Vinchu, Tundin Bade, Pacha, Kanika Jerandu, Karji Samtan Andigadu.
Oh, Lasso, the Gadang Shipchu, Shipke Yang Ani, the Kirangi Dondaktang, that's Kakare La, Yana Pelcher, the Gemma, the Kola. Yeah, so Geshe-la is saying, you know, one thing that has been, you know, very clear, for example, when we were in, you know, 147, is it 147? Yeah, when we discussed the qualities, the limited qualities of ordinary beings and the excelled and incomprehensible qualities of bodhisattvas, you know, is, you know, one point that you know, he feels has been clear. But that there are two ways to interpret this whole section, these verses, there are two different ways to interpret them. And we'll get more into that. He'll find some clarification. So he's asking, I just told him, so he thought only 147 was a little different. But actually 148 is also, right? It says, depending on how we take it, who we think is the speaker here, who is the speaker, it says, I'll advertise my gifts and ensures that his qualities remain unknown. That's not what we heard in Geshe-la's explanation. Am I right? Am I remembering that right? So yeah, this is also problematic. Kangin di dire, pena di che papo sure di young kip chik di nga injike la nga trido yana di nga sure di serpomendo ani di
Zaki yenden is the Sidi Gala Chanjus, that Chanjus Seba Karsora, Vajin Jetsane, Jingi and then Tom. 란진진 견통상엔 딱 가사 되기까지 시거래. 지태다기 인데 내스들가라 다 로장단 장진바르 차되어라. 로장내 진진진 연den통 란진진의 견도 따통엔 가사티 연den데
딱.
배 셀프리스 뉴뉴주마데요 말레스. 장주세베 연den데 타에바여스 살투비아요 말 무슨 문도 큐르투비아요 말라 그래.
Okay.
제디 연된 강세디 제양 시디가라 제양 시디 양다티게 카레제 디 연된 양 제양 디 연된 시디가라 장주세반 디 연된데 배 가르소래 연된 강임바 수경 통어 민규로스 수경 통투 마레스 카부레스.
Oh, this is no. Injikela beta kakare kema beta kakare. So yeah, I'll tell you what he just told me 148 says in Tibetan, and then we'll see if it says that in English. I don't see it. It says, okay, so first I asked him, who is the I in the first sentence, where it says by every means I, right? Geshe-la said, this is the individual who has realized the faults of their self-clinging ways and has seen the great qualities and caring about others. This is someone who has, due to this, they have gained qualities. They've gained qualities of knowing. That's what the Daki Yunten, that's what I don't know about my gifts, it says my qualities, which is fine. My gifts, it means I have the quality, my qualities are that I have realized self-cherishing is a positive thing. And so anyways, the last two lines, Geshe-la says that ensuring his good qualities, this is talking about a bodhisattva. It says that I will speak about the great qualities of bodhisattvas, for his qualities, are excelled. And excelled, but hard for anyone to know, beyond comprehension. And that's not what it says here. It says, I will make sure his qualities are ignored by everyone. Very different. So Geshe-la Injikela Disondo Anitrido, my gifts to all the world. Okay. Daki Yunten De, not so the Jikten Nangla na Kaptrak year, the Kaptrak Dang Drabochik.
뉴뉴지 relagorda captain was 뉴뉴지 시작이 랍침보다 배 야침보다 니어 말rel라네
라소 예나양 페나 직ten 탐체라 직ten 강라 아니
타파다 살바레스 하고 그래 지데나 타데요레
네윤텐 하고 그래
하고 그래스 나진 제 서베카자 유기연된데 라고르다 인지데나 고 타파잠지데 살바잠지르마도 근데 개첨부여 말레스 장주 세베 연된데 수경 가르쳐 수경 통어를 민규로스 배 근데 인디가라베 장주 세발라 랍춤비 연된 요레스 텔리강 제가 나진 제 상에 연된데 중중 레스 장주 세베 연된데 제 레랍 거다
라소 오케이
돈다 다디네 점바 가르도
인지켈라 아니 돈닥 디 아니 인지 케 하코켄 디 로그나 디 코아 펠처 코아 랭게레
디 윤텐 강센데 가르랍도
올라서 네 윤텐 데네 직텐 사마 아니 차창 미 차창 아니 하코고레 얘나야 거기 윤텐데 수
수경 통화를 민규로
아니 no the 동교 미 par migiro timare ne let's see sukyang hakogi no the ne hako majukire, hako
Ale
mejukire, ni pena begore. Kongi yunten kongi yunten begore.
tena toso kensarjidu.
Yeah, like tong mijuk. Nye kongi yuntende nye tong mijuk. Shandak tong mijuk. Won't let
Or
them know.
minguros.
So I was just explaining that it says that in English that like I'm going, and Geshe-la did say that to let others know about your like my, by every means I'll advertise my gifts to the world. Geshe-la says in the commentary, it says that the ordinary, like this my, remember, meaning others, not like an exalted being, they have qualities that all the world can know and it can be evident, but that bodhisattvas have qualities that aren't outwardly evident by everyone. Ordinary beings we can see, everything they have is pretty plain to see, but bodhisattvas have more than is initially visible. But
China dire chibasusikyo yenden chuse jiyo bade pe nga yendondo sengenjirwa.
yeah.
Jwa.
Oh,
Tanju seba de yenden pe chemboyona sengimarwa.
okay. And
Igirwa.
so really, yeah. So Geshe-la is saying another way we can understand it is think about the I that's talking here. We're still within the sense of ordinary beings. Ordinary beings are all about talking about themselves. Oh, I can do this, I can do that. They're all about advertising their qualities. Whereas bodhisattvas who actually possess great qualities really keep them hidden.
Nana gaur muje umil tawe quality nange shigme sungdo. Jugun reche gyatu gala kane yeri yeze de sungdo.
So he said, for example, His Holiness, when he speaks, he says, I really don't know anything about Madhyamaka. I'm not skilled, the middle way. I know very little about the middle way. And then he goes on to give like this great exposition in detail, that shows that he does indeed know the middle way, know Madhyamaka very well. So
Janju sebateso yenden chemboyona yenden baby bene kengyongorwa.
Even though, and people who really have great qualities are great bodhisattvas, great saints in this world actually are extremely, they keep them, they're under the radar. They're not advertising them. They're very, very humble about them.
Ngazo miji ngazo sondrina yende shigema tenge shigi lagorde.
Yeah.
Hartuna tiwachi tindo kasajile te pungutalande na te chigro.
Yeah. So just like, there are some people who say, oh, I know this and I've learned that and I know this and I know that, but you ask them some questions and realize that, the depth is really not there, but they're speaking very much that they are. I think part of the issue here too is it says, and I'll advertise my gifts to the world, ensuring that his qualities remain unknown. I guess I'm going to have to get some of the commentaries too, and read them, because nowhere in the Tibetan does it say that I will make sure no one knows of his great qualities. Anyways, I don't see that agentive, but it's just, yeah.
Teto zembarda janju seb ta satumbo ne janju sebateso yende haleba jiyana yende ngundu chugo mare. Kebra tango mare. Tate yendenda janju seba oma le gama de yende laba yorwa. Satambuni basumbaze ningi rudo. Tate Reta Jamada Mazo Yagur di Kashewata, that the Chuzu to the Chaka Karmanishul Rochas, like Kalaka.
Okay, so we're
제마야
late.
견 딩곤 루긴달로.
So it's getting late. Geshe-la says we've gone over here now. We're about, even almost an hour over. And we'll continue. We're going to go over these verses again next week when we meet again. We're going to go over these verses, and he says he'll look more in his commentaries, and we'll keep going through this. But one thing that's this is the truth of it is that those who have gained, that are bodhisattvas, that really have the realization, are really bodhisattvas, indeed, do not advertise it, and they really keep it under wraps. This is the reality. This is part of, the level of being a bodhisattva. They would indeed be keeping it under wraps, and therefore, as it says here, their qualities remain unknown. I don't know about this word ignored as I have here, but Geshe-la says that is indeed the very case of bodhisattvas. They would not be making their qualities evident for everyone to see. And we'll go over this more, but we're late for tonight. We've gone over, and it's
가보다 가보 쉬우지르셔. 빼 가보르셔. 다란 진진 견통 전진진 연된 통되게 간사되게 답에 간듯이 냠린 찍어올 때까지 찍어올 때 인도클라 란 진진기 견데 빼 십 타부지 셀거리 인규란다 때리.
Yeah. So this is difficult. It's tough stuff. And what we're doing is looking from the perspective of someone who has already, seen, the way to altruism, and now looks back in detail at each, affliction or negativity of self-clinging and self-cherishing, and then therefore pride and jealousy and competitiveness. It is looking, really closely now, but now we're looking from the perspective of being a person who is now that other that we established in verse number 140, or at some time we made kind of this swap here, but we have to go back and look at, that. But he did, Geshe-la said it's difficult, and we'll keep going through. We'll go back and redo these verses.
마르사데 때다 란친진 기 견통 전진진 연된 통되게 간사지기 냠슬렌사 순거와.
Yeah. These are the practices and trainings. We are taking up now the practices and trainings of one who has already seen the fault in our old self-cherishing ways and have taken on and seen the goodness in cherishing others dearly. And we're now taking that perspective while we investigate this more.
제전 디나라 나겔 시야당 차도 시야당 덴셈 시야도 덴셈 원에 말에 녀모징게 덴셈 말에 민기타로 고배운게 펜도트비아 돈달라.
And again, as we revisit the states of jealousy and the states of pride, envy, competitiveness, as we revisit those, we're not entrenched in them. They're not negative mental states. We are labeling them and looking at them, and then kind of picking them apart to find fault and purify and so forth. So, and I think part of the problem, this is just me saying this now, might be the English and understanding what perspective we're taking, how we're looking at this. So, I think I'll try. I don't know if I can get the same, I don't think I have Nectar of Manjushri speech, but I might be able to buy it digitally. I also, honestly, I don't see the words of outstripping him, or that, I will ensure that his qualities remain unknown. But in English, you have to put a subject and an object in a sentence. Otherwise, it can, it can be difficult. It just won't make sense. But there's this, I'll advertise my gifts to the world, ensuring that his qualities, the I isn't really in that I will do that. There is, nothing saying in the Tibetan. It just really does say his qualities remain unknown by everyone. So some of it also might be the English, and hopefully Geshe-la can help us clarify it.
Pena tanda jibke pade la chajana drunan di dichigdo sawa in drunan chede chini dag yende ne ese sungdo.
Geshe-la's looking at his commentary again at 148. I don't know if it's the same or different commentary.
Chini dag yende ne jiten kula salwa tang se adala kazana chini dag yende ne jiten kula lepar trashing salwa tang se lepar tape mundu kirkuma re lagor tape enipe mundu kirkuma re hakokore salfures. Oh, yunde kenchane yunde lapchumbo mari nimade marwa nimade nipe ranjindi shujo ngashi to mangula girwa ko kare me de hakugu arwa ta jendi yunde kan sugyan thor migur chaze sungdo telan dunen karchendo jeyang zedal chanju sebe yunde kan yimba sugyan thor mingurbe telthar de chawo ze sungdo. That carrier, Chanju Sebala, Yende lab Jumbo Yende Nambra Manguyores. They Sumra Chigamara Beshagoro, Korange, Nashigme Sumra. You're much as a Zodici. Shigme Sumra, Tondichi, Sun the Galapat, Jima Chijin Telelapa, me Gona Age Sungudo. They kept doa.
So this is very clear. When Geshe-la reads the commentary and explains what is in that commentary, it becomes very clear. But I can see where if you didn't have someone explaining this or have the commentary where you could jump to conclusions and interpret it differently. But what Geshe-la has just read and explained, we've got two sections. The first of, by every means I'll advertise my gifts to the world. And what it says there in the commentary is it's not, so an ordinary being would just be talking all about themselves. Not to say that there aren't great qualities, but what it means is they're always saying, I have this, I have that. Everyone has to know. They're so loud about everything, whatever they think is great about themselves. And they make sure everyone knows. And so that, I think, is pretty clear here. That makes sense. But the second one, so it does indeed say, advertise my gifts, like I'm a gift to the world, right? God's gift to the world, they say. But in the second explanation, Geshe-la says, where it says, his qualities remain unknown. These are the great qualities of a bodhisattva. And bodhisattvas actually have great qualities, but instead of advertising them, they keep them under wraps. Part of being a bodhisattva is being very humble, and it just naturally, they don't talk a lot about themselves, and they don't try to make it evident and show off, their gifts. Actually, to the contrary, just like His Holiness says, I don't know anything about that. I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to that, and yet it is actually just the opposite. And so that's what's being said here, that ordinary beings are spouting off everything about themselves so much that all others around them are covering their ears and getting a headache. While bodhisattvas, although they have great qualities, remain like just kind of demure and under the radar. That's what's being meant here. So it's like these, hidden yogis among us. We wouldn't be able to pick them out because they don't show off their qualities, but they are indeed hidden yogis that do indeed have, realization and qualities. They just hide them.
공단을 무지 티지 숨어래. 미인데 맥겨도 배 미배 뽑아통보 디어레스. 아니 진가나 야가야즈데 네지키 네 나포지 때는 루시레 요마레. 장파 인도 가보여 배 상상되고 kun rumen zang shang de go wa den mi yende me kya ngar kengpa chen de so shang yo res den pe yende yogen de so pe nyimjung je undu yogen de ma jigo den ru ma kuku ji de go de na ji yo re la bre ji de nimen go manang tengi ki dun dana mi no ang zer sung re ben beben ji de nima ji dan den be nyema yo ra nyema ze ne te ru khya de la nyema se go ra 장파 때는 녀마데 때 루케용도 가라 녀마데 배 궁구 차도 와 루메교 녀마데 상상요 나로서 집에서 게오때서 연den시나 맹엔도 나시게 가장 지게잖아 15시기에서 30시기 와래 돈달래요 말은 그러잖아 개밥 남자진 데서 때려요 말이라고 오늘 내가 말했다 맞아 배는 캔슬 시도하다.
So, Guntan Rinpoche, speaks about this, where there's this like beautiful little verse comparing the two different types of individuals. The individual who really don't know anything, they know very little. And yet they stand, tall and proud, and arrogant, like a know-it-all, while those who actually have great knowledge and great qualities actually hunch over quite humbly. So those that stand, so there's like those that, know very little but stand like they know it all, or like the stalk of a plant that stands like straight up proud, proud to the sun. And, those are the people who actually don't really know so much, where there's like this, I guess, so I don't know if it's like a moonflower or what it is, but then there's another plant that droops its head, at times, drooped down and hunched down. And actually that's like those hidden yogis, those that really are very, very knowledgeable, accomplished, and yet they bow down like that moonflower, hunched over. And it really, out there, it really is like that. There are those that just, it just accords like that.
Yeah. 간제 다진 제 차르베 간사 되게 지라 지데게 시고리 인규란다.
And so, Lasso, the sikje ditso nangla.
Oh, ditso kanga tanda tarung yongju kanga tetere. Dajen je sarbe kanza chigi ta nyamsu landa samu tanda te shigore.
And so these are trainings or visualizations that are meant for someone who's already knows that this is the wrong way to do it. So the ones that we're in now are meant for us to read after, an individual to read after they know this is not the right way to do it. This is someone who's already figured out that, egotistical, being all about yourself, is not the way to do it. And one has already exchanged themselves for other, meaning has another perspective of cherishing others, more importantly, has a new way of going about in the world. These trainings are meant for that person.
Yeah. Okay. Now, do the check out tal from the discuss more.
Yeah, so we didn't get very, Geshe-la says now we're more than an hour over, and we didn't get very far in terms of the text, but we had a lot of discussion.
야부지 등에 시고 말다 같이 장부시나?
La.
야부지 등에 시고 말해지.
말해라.
그 가서 살고야 길 말해, 살아야 말해. 간지 나랑도 배나 배잘로 지 semla yargi jidugo
Yeah.
depend do.
Yeah. So even though like we didn't get very far here, even though we didn't get very far, it's been, you know, and Geshe-la says, you know, may not have been expressed everything very well, but actually there's a lot of progress because we made a lot of, you know, progress in our understanding, and that's the most important thing.
준주대 오늘 타보도 semla 펜본도 타본도 갈렌도.
Yeah. So this text is hard, but it's extremely beneficial. And you know, it's like, you know, it's tough stuff. Some of it's hard to conceive of or wrap your head around. So it is difficult, but extremely beneficial.
ngaji 시기에서도 포바지디 준주 셰데다 메가 펜본도 삼데 시기.
And
nga shaya da konja shigmi ke ngara jawa mangputagi
says he comes from a place in teaching this, not from a place of a feeling like he knows it well or knows a lot about it, but from the place that he wants to benefit. You know, he wants his teachings to be beneficial. He wants to benefit us all. Not saying he knows it well. Actually says he does indeed rely on many of the commentaries to support his understanding.
Yeah, that 뭐지?
Shall we dedicate now?
전주 삼조림보제 마제 빠나 갱규르지 개와냠밤 고네 건도 배워로서 거리라에 꼬르웨 진간데 펜단세와 말린 제레제원 땡땡자서이 샤베시테 파도 생규르지 잠벌바웨 칠다르게 군도 장포테 대진데 대다 군지시소달럽지 배원데다 라동노 뜻음셰베 개와 탐제기 뭐 간라초동 바쟁게 자원데 군장 장포초치라동 와르기
Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. In the land encircled by snow white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your person, Chenrezik, Tenzin Gyaltso, remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samantabhadra too, so now I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings to perfect good actions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.